I didn't notice a weakness in this, which is despite all these tank destroyers, all his anti-aircraft units were brought to deal with my VDV infantry, meaning that even a couple of basic Hinds could do a lot of damage, as we are about to see. I brought my beacon helicopter over to allow them to fire their full range. And as you can see, even this powerful mob of units which suffered casualties taking Foxtrot has been completely turned on its heels by the Mi-24. He is now desperately trying to reinforce his stuff with Rolands. My ally has brought in a Mi-28 Havoc, which is definitely going to do well, but unfortunately because he's got all of his stuff around, they're running out of fuel, so they won't be able to get here in time. Also, I mentioned to my ally that he does have significant AA presence up here, so therefore I mentioned that there are Rolands, and that if they retreat, just let them retreat. These Rolands are going to be doing far more damage to our helicopters than we would be managing to do to their tank destroyers. As you can see, he's bringing in Cobras to attempt to combat the helicopters. The Rolands have moved up and are preparing to fire, so this is clearly the time to retreat. His Havoc takes a pretty big beating. I move my Keeper Mi-24As in front to try and soak up the missile flak. And in general, although his attack has been halted, I lost significant units and I'm definitely on the back foot. As you can see, they are now planning to attack Bravo to completely drive me out of this area, again using overwhelming force. So now the Cobras are moving in, hoping to do some damage to the command vehicle before I can retreat. However, because there are so many of our helicopters here, the Cobras aren't going to get far. As you can see, I'm now fully abandoning Foxtrot, as there is just too many units swarming about here for me to deal with. He's definitely going for a massive swarm of units that use overwhelming force to devastating effect. And at the moment, NATO is in the lead with 1,600 points to our 1,200. Although my allies have been able to defend the borders fairly effectively here and here, because we are only 3 players against 4, their combined swarm of units here is forcing me back, as well as the loss that I had of several of my main battle tanks at the start, and the artillery, which has definitely been focused on me. As you can see, I'm trying to counter their tank destroyers with my own, using the BDRM2 Conkers, as well as hoping to bring in some anti-tank infantry, seeing as the tank destroyers won't be able to prey on them, as I learned back here. This is clearly now a huge amount of infantry and tanks using the roads to speed quickly to Bravo, hoping to overwhelm me yet again. Here I'm using my Mi-2 Europe Salamandra anti-tank helicopters. This was my first match using them, so I wasn't sure how effective they were, but generally they weren't that effective, really, because they lacked the rocket pods of the Hind. They weren't able to stun units like the Roland 2s before landing shots. So as you can see, they went in, had a look at what would happen, and flew off. One of them was quite lucky not to die there, as the Roland 2s could definitely pack a punch. As you can see, I have kept one of my recon units in the woods here, because I want to see what they're feeling, so I can counter it. Also, hopefully, when they move the front line up to Bravo, Foxtrot will be relatively undefended. Maybe they'll even put a command vehicle in, and they can use the BDRM1 to knock out the command vehicle. Also, if any of my allies start building artillery, this will be very useful to hit their flanks. As you can see, they're using the Rolands first because they know of the weaknesses. and the BDRM Conquerors are moving into position, also building supply trucks to help them out. Unfortunately, there are just way too many enemy tank destroyers for the BDRM to deal with, and it is almost immediately overcome with these 80 KMs. Although it does manages to net 1 kill of the Valmethistos, this is definitely not the result I'm hoping for, as I'm completely outnumbered at this moment. So therefore I request any one of my allies with artillery to RT. Also, he is using his artillery, which is he is brought up to Foxtrot for greater accuracy to target the loose ranging recon units I've put around the place to give me greater to give them greater room to maneuver secretly. As in, the BDRM Conquerors are again firing at this advancing force. I was hoping that they would be able to at least keep the recon there for the artillery to rout their poorly armoured units. Also, I had a book M1, and as you can see, they're using their artillery to knock out any unit they see, and because it's maintaining its distance to the front line, this is definitely a very dangerous force. As you can see, I'm again bringing up my gunship helicopters. I know their Rolands are located here, so I hope maybe I could flank them over to this hilltop. Also, I'm moving my tank destroyers up to intercept the Roland 2s, because I know there aren't any mob of tank destroyers to go through if I attack from this direction. So I'm using the anti-tank equipped infantry and the BDRM Conquerors to deal some damage. As you can see, I've got my salamanders back into range, and they are firing on the Rolands first. Hopefully they'll knock them out before they can return fire. But nope, and this time that salamander wasn't so lucky. Also, now the mortars and the tank destroyers have moved in front of the Roland, so by the time my Conqueror gets here, there isn't that much I can do, and is instantly overcome. Hopefully there will be a different fate to the BTR-60. As you can see, he's clearly unnerved by the amount of units he's encountering. It's called for help. Again, I've moved some more infantry around the flanks. Hopefully they'll be able to do something. As you can see, the recon's currently seeing there's chaparrals, lots of supply vehicles and artillery back here. As you can see, I send the BTR in first to distract their units, while the PTR Conquerors fires its load on the Amara VTSIs. They do some damage, but again, this huge swarm of units isn't that well, and now they're moving directly into Bravo. This is definitely not something I'd like, as this is my last force. As you can see, Kogaz deciding to take control of the forest, while your gauge will be swarming my available units. As you can see, both of my command armors are still intact. Unfortunately, due to their constant attacks on all the front lines, I can't really put any, in any other zones without being instantly attacked upon. Tank destroyers are now moving to range. However, the Havoc is fine and is doing very well, as the Rolands cannot see it because of the altitude. He's moved up some infantry to hold on to the woods, and the Conquerors and the Havoc are definitely doing some damage. However, now we're panicking because they're bringing Cobras to range. They've spotted the BDRM and are hoping to knock it out, thinking that this is what's allowing us to reinforce. The tank destroyer goes into the woods, but the motor Strelky made quick work of it. Kogaz again firing the artillery, and I'm sending a constant stream of BTR-60s equipped with anti-tank infantry in. The artillery comes down, but unfortunately it hits wide going into the forest. As you can see, Hotel, despite the fact it has no defences, is completely ignored, as Bravo is very clearly their priority. They're now bringing in MBT-70 main battle tanks. This is clearly a much greater concern for my anti-tank equipped infantry. And my ally is also bringing in T-64A battle tanks. These will be much welcomed, as at the moment I'm just buying infantry as I can afford them, as well as some Tunguska anti-aircraft units to try and deal with the Cobras in case they want to attack. As you can see, I'm deploying the Fagos as far away as possible from their units so their mortar VTSIs can't come into range and use their powerful cannons. And the attack has been repelled, just about. I've also moved my BGRM to try and take these recon units here. As you can see, I've requested the AA as I see the Cobras coming in. I had some books up here, but unfortunately they're not in range, so I'll be trying to bring them in range as soon as possible. And we'll be buying some Tunguskas. However, this is definitely a threat. As you can see, he's buying even more Cobras as he has noticed the lack of AA. The BDRM was taken down quickly before it could threaten the supply depots. But the Conquerors are moving into range, as is the BTR. As you can see, there's nothing really defending the command vehicle apart from the units that are coming in. This is quite good for us. And another swarm of 6 Cobras is coming in to reinforce the 2 that are already worrying us. However, the book is coming into range, so hopefully it'll be able to help fend off the swarm. But we're definitely feeling on the back foot. NATO has now got a 1,000 point advantage and is pressing very hard on these units here. As you can see, they're surrounded on both flanks and will be hard pressed to put on, to say. As you can see, the Rolands are coming in, but they're low on missiles, low on fuel. That hopefully they'll end up in a bad position, meaning that we might be able to use some helicopters. Cobras are advancing, and I've just about managed to get a Tunguska into range. This isn't the Tunguska M, however, so its range is much lower. And I wasn't able to afford a veterancy for it. However, the Cobras have managed to move in range of the machine guns of the BTR. But again, they are doing significant damage and definitely cause for great concern. The artillery is now opening up on the forests. As you can see, the BGRM moved away, but we still held on to Bravo, so they should know we have another command armor in here at this point. As you can see, their supply trucks are now resupplying, rearming, and refueling the Roland 2s and the Brandy IFE. The Cobras swarm in across the forest. Bad mistake is the motor-striking BTRs can do significant damage and panic the remainder of them. And the Tunguska moves into range of this Cobra, allowing it to knock them out. Also, this Cobra is now completely out of ammunition because it wasn't pulled back. The T-64s are using their machine guns on it, and these Cobras are now getting very dangerously close to my command vehicle and can see it. However, because they've suffered so much damage, they are hard pressed to remain effective. As indeed, I'm moving my BTRs up to sort of force away the Cobras, which are routing and can't fire. All they have is their machine gun. This force of Cobra has been reduced to dust. The BTRs and the Tunguskas have fended off this Cobra. However, the MBT-70s are now coming in. However, because the Cobra wasn't able to take out my Fago defenses, there still are several of them ready to counterattack, as well as some on this flank and some on this flank here. As you can see, attack and defense. This is very clearly much the focus of their area, but after the Cobras I've moved the command armor back. However, because this one is still in Bravo, I didn't lose reinforcement for ability for a second.